Okay, so as we're going into this Knowing Your Numbers series, I wanted to start us out with a little ground rules, right? So we're going to be looking at some formulas, and I'm going to be asking you to know some metrics to calculate those formulas. So I thought it would be helpful to let you know where you can find them. Now, everyone has a different POS, so we can't go over each POS individually, but hopefully this will point you in the right direction. So let's start with on-hand inventory at cost and on-hand inventory at retail. Now, this should be in your POS under the reports section that have to do with inventory. Usually each POS has an inventory report section. It should show your on-hand inventory at cost and at retail. Now, what you'll mostly likely see it as is your month-end inventory. So let's say we're in the middle of May. If you wanted to see your current on hand, you're probably going to be looking at the inventory from the end of April. That's how it's tabulated. So in Shopify, for instance, you'll see a month-end inventory snapshot, a month-end inventory value report, and you'll also, pro tip, have an ABC product analysis report, which will have both your inventory at cost and your inventory at retail right on the first line of the summary. Okay, so that's how we're going to find those numbers. Your operating expenses, your percentage of operating expenses as compared to sales, well, that's going to come from your P&L. So look at your last P&L that your bookkeeper or accountant put together. You should see what were your sales for the year, what were the operating expenses for the year, and then we're going to want to find that percentage your operating expenses were in comparison to your sales. Okay, so that's going to be a great way to see how much margin is going to cover your operating expenses and benchmark those two. Okay, markdown percentage. Now, this is a little trickier. On most point of sale systems, you're going to want to look for a sales by discount report. Now, that is on Shopify, how you find it, your sales by discount. And then again, to find out your markdown percentage, you're going to look at your total sales in comparisons to your discounted sales and what percentage were discounted. That is how you will find your markdown percentage. Okay, your number of transactions. So your number of transactions, well, that should be in any daily sales report. So any sales report you pull should easily have your number of transactions right there. Daily number of visitors. Well, there's two things we need to look out for here. If you are an e-commerce or online store, use Google Analytics. It will easily tell you how many people visited your site that day. If you are a brick and mortar store, I strongly suggest you go out, get a traffic counter. It doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to track the amount of people that walked in your door, and you need to keep track of it every day. So that's how we're going to find our daily number of visitors. Your total sales by dollar, your total sales by units. Well, again, that should be right there on your sales report. It's going to look a little different for each POS, but I would say a vast majority would 100% certainly dollars, and you're going to see the units. And again, you're going to see those number of transactions. So if you have any difficulty there, let us know, but it should be right there for you. And then finally, your average inventory at retail. Well, to find this, we have two options. So your average inventory at retail is going to be your month-end inventory for January and your month-end inventory for December in the same year. You're going to add them together and divide them by 2. And what that should tell you is approximately what was the average amount of inventory you held throughout the year. So it's going to show you kind of your peak and your lowest. We're going to get the average, and that's going to show you about where you stayed in terms of inventory level throughout the year. Now, if you can't find that, I would suggest, for the sake of the formulas we're going to show, just use on-hand inventory at retail, which could be found in the month-end inventory snapshot or the month-end inventory value report. So that is my tips for finding these metrics. And this way, when we start talking about formulas, you know exactly where to look. Hope that helps. We'll see you in the Knowing Your Numbers series.